is Jeff Resnick. I have the privilege of being volunteer chair of the Shady Grove Sector Plan Implementation Advisory Committee. And several of my fellow committee members are with us this evening, as well as Nkosi Yearwood, with whom we work very closely. Nkosi, thank you very much for all your coordination on the Montgomery planning side, as always. Much appreciated. This evening, we're going to jump right in per our agenda. We have three distinguished guests with us this evening, all from Montgomery County Recreation. And I would like to take a few minutes to introduce them, and then they're going to share with us details of the, just talk with us about the Montgomery County Department of Recreation Facility Development Plan 2010-2030, and how that involves our community, or could well involve our community. It's a privilege to welcome Director Robin Riley, who was appointed to serve as Director of Montgomery County Recreation by County Executive Mark Elrich in December 2018. She has served in the department for over 40 years, earning numerous commendations for her public service, and we're thrilled to have her here this evening, along with her colleague, Division Chief of Programs, Adrian Clutter, who was promoted to Division Chief in the department, Division Chief of Programming and Aquatics in October 2017, which by its very definition sounds really fascinating to me. So I'm especially interested to hear about the aquatics program. And then also we have Melanie Sassy, who's Division Chief for Recreation Facilities and Aquatics as well. Melanie was promoted to Division Chief of Aquatics in Rec Centers and CIP, most importantly in August of 2019. She's been with Montgomery County Recreation for 30 years. So we have a wealth of experience in these three leaders who have so very kindly joined us during their summertime to share with us information about their work and the effect on our community, the opportunities at hand potentially for our community. So I'm going to turn things over to Robin Riley. Director Riley, thank you again very much, sincerely, for your time.
Sure. No, thank you for having us and the opportunity to speak with you guys.
Certainly.
Yeah, so for me, I actually started over 40 years ago as a seasonal employee. So I've been with the department a long time. Our capital budget program was developed many years ago, and we're coming up on a time that we probably have to think about renewing it. So 2030 is going to be here in a minute, it seems like. We did take a little bit of a time out with COVID. And we've also had some great partners come forward that sort of took us out of a queue in terms of some of our development. You'll see in our facility development plan, which was connected really strongly, and I should probably just let Melanie talk, with a program that we did called Vision 2030, which was with Montgomery County Park and Planning Commission. We did it jointly to sort of set a strategic plan, and it really connected well with our facility development plan. In terms of partnership, the HOC project in downtown Silver Spring kind of came to the table as an opportunity that the county really couldn't change, couldn't walk away from. We were getting land and be able to actually put a pin in one of our long range facility sites, which was the South County Regional Aquatic Center. And so that sort of moved forward. So it sort of threw us off schedule a little bit. Clarksburg should have been done, or should be done, in 2020. So we're still looking for land and working on that development as well. The facility development plan talked a lot about Shady Grove. The Shady Grove sector was really, things were changing. That whole area where Shady Grove runs through was very much industrial. We had ride-on transportation there. School buses were in that area. So there's always been a pin that as that development sort of evolved and changed it, we would watch it closely and make decisions about whether that was really going to become a high residential area, because we knew that there was a need for something in the Gaithersburg area. So we're still in that pin is still in the map there. And I'll let Melanie talk more about the CIP, but that's sort of the snapshot of where we are with our CIP project. Mel,
thank you.
Go ahead. Sure.
Sure. Just to just to take it back just a little bit, when we did our 2030 vision, one of the things that did come out of that whole programming and planning and all of the meetings and things that went into that was that we needed to look at developing some regional centers, moving away a little bit from the smaller ones because they are not as, they're needed, but they're not as cost effective and they don't serve as many people as we feel that we should be serving. So we were going to look to moving to what's called the regional plan, which would then encompass a large rec center attached with a aquatics facility and maybe attached to something else, another service provider that would want to partner with us. Like they've done down in Silver Spring, they've got Holy Cross that'll be part of ours. And of course, we sit underneath a whole bunch of senior housing, which is great too. And Silver Spring did fall into our lap, which was kind of a blessing in disguise. And unfortunately, things kind of got bumped around. I'm sure if you've ever listened to David Dice talk or Greg Assant, they'll tell you things get bumped if we get an opportunity. And we like to get opportunities to bump things. So the 4 areas that were developed in that plan 2 would be the Silver Spring, the White Flint area, the Shady Grove, and then of course Clarksburg. And it was all going up the 270 where all the higher concentrations are for the populations and ease of access so that, you know, all of Montgomery County would have the ability to participate and use these facilities. And Shady Grove was one of the ones and still is one of the ones that is in that process. And again, it's, you know, it's part of that overgoing kind of a thing. So once we move to the next phase for the Shady Grove area, that facility that we plan to build or that we as a rec department desire to have put into place could be in Shady Grove. It could be 10 miles a little bit north. It could be 10 miles a little bit west. I don't think east because I think we've got enough in that area going on right now, but it could be in that general facility. And when that comes to fruition, we will need some advocacy. We will need all the help that we can get so that we can, you know, make sure that we get it done the right way, that it is what people need and what they want at that time. Because as we all know, recreation is constantly changing its vision. It is not the same thing that it used to be. It's, you know, we tend to move and change. Dare I say the word pickleball? I don't want to say that word. That's a big word now, but you know, the needs. Oh, is that a good or a bad? No, okay, I'm not saying that word, but things do tend to change. So, to give you a current update as to where we're at right now with our CIP, we are finishing up Silver Spring, and hopefully that'll be done by the end of the year. We're crossing our fingers and saying our prayers that we can get that thing moving. We are working with Damascus and Holiday Park Senior Center, what we are now calling refreshes, so that those buildings can be brought up to date because they are a little bit old and a little bit in need of attention. And then the Kennedy Shriver Aquatic Center is going to be undergoing a renovation as well because it is one of our older facilities.
Ms. Hassey, excuse me for a moment. I'm sorry to interrupt you.
That's okay.
Forgive me. Nkosi, we have 16 people who are in a parallel meeting. And not to coin a Star Trek metaphor here, but they're in an alternate universe, and I'm trying to get them into this meeting. And if I could ask you for your help somehow, I'd appreciate that. I have been back channeling to them, giving them this meeting link consistently, and for some reason, it's taking them to that alternate universe. So I'll continue to do that, but I just wanted to alert you, and if someone reaches out to you, if you could help and direct them here, that'd be great. I don't know why the multiverse we're experiencing here, but there we have it. Okay, Ms. Hassey, back to you. Thanks.
Yeah, so and then Kennedy Shriver is going to be undergoing a renovation as well. I'm sure that you've heard how CIP is done, that there's a large scale plan that is done every 5 or 6 years. And then in the alternate odd years, we go through a request or a refresh. I call it a refresh as to what we want. And we submit all of our new plans to the county exec and to the council, and they say they like it, they don't like it. But I believe we should be looking for something up county. I don't know if it's going to be which one's going to hit next, but hopefully in the next 2 years, we would be able to get that into the CIP, I guess, queue is the best way. So we can start the planning, we can start moving forward, we can start having the charrettes and getting all of the information and doing the building blocks. So that's kind of where we stand at the moment.
That's great to know. I have a question in the back of my mind, but I'll defer to any further information that any of you wish to share.
Adrian, do you have anything to add, or?
Yeah, just a couple of things. I think, as Melanie mentioned, one of the important things to note is that the criteria for which we look at the CIP and the developments has changed over time. So before, if you had a chance to look at the link, I appreciate you sending that out. We really looked heavily at the population and the socioeconomic makeup of the communities. North Central Montgomery County was certainly a priority. Now, as everybody knows, social equity is a big focus. And so some of the things that we consider, and I think it is important to know some of the history of the industry where I say back in the day, but many, many moons ago, local community-based centers that were smaller, that didn't have all of the amenities, that was the popular trend in our industry in parks and recreation. And so all these smaller facilities were built, not only here in Montgomery County, but really all over Prince George's, all over the region.
Mm-hmm.
And what had happened is those buildings became really hard to maintain, and they didn't have the amenities that were going to attract people to come to get the best use, as Melanie mentioned. So the industry shifted in terms of focusing on these more regional center approaches. And some things that have happened as well is the Maryland National Capital Park and Planning Commission has come out with their Thrive plan, which many of you may be aware of. One of the things that's important to note as we look at how our CIP will change in relationship to how our counties changed is that they're really focusing on a 15-minute radius around we'll say a service area. And so that's really going to be critical. And Melanie also mentioned, I want to say, advocacy. That's going to be important for the community because the political will is certainly one of the what I call the community criteria that will influence where the order and the prioritization of things. In addition, so we have Upper County Community Center, which is in need of a refresh. It's on the list, of course. We have the community in Montgomery Village that is advocating strongly for something to be put at Lake Forest Mall. And then, you know, there's Clarksburg recently has I want to say, come out of the shadows, and they're going, hey, what about us? You promised us. And certainly Shady Grove was in there as well. So there's all of these competing priorities within that area. So this criteria is going to be really important as we look at it. But one of the things that's important to the industry and why we went to the refresh project is because we couldn't leave the community centers behind that we had already built. So we've got, for example, shiny new building in Wheaton, and you go down the street to where a more population dense area where a building was built some decades ago, and it looks like it's being left behind, not intentionally, but it's running its life cycle. Its maintenance is beyond what can be kept up. And so we're running into a lot of that situation where it really then becomes an equity issue for the department. And it's hard because you know that there's a level of service needed in particular community, but you also have these aging infrastructure, which creates equity issues in communities that we're fortunate enough to have buildings early on. And as you look at how the buildings came on in Montgomery County, it certainly followed the population trend, where they started down county in the more densely populated areas and moved out. There's some of the criteria that might be a little different now than it was at the time that the plan was initiated. And as Robin said, it's probably time to dust that plan off. Certainly the diversity index and how diverse the population is. Are there other recreation facilities within that 15-minute radius of a location? We're looking at the economic factors in the community, looking at the number of youth and seniors. Youth and seniors tend to be heavy users of public recreation services. Looking at the median household income, as I mentioned, economics. Looking at crime, we certainly know that that safety in a community, in areas of high crime, there's often lack of service. And so we need to make sure that we have opportunities to build community, to build that social capital, and certainly political will. Where do our our elected officials tell us that their constituents are advocating for their needs. Also, that there's facility aspects that go into this as well. I'd mentioned some of those before. Some of them are just flat out safety hazards. Is the building in such disrepair that it's really going to be problematic, or maybe even run the risk of being closed for long periods of time, while it gets to a point where it's not advantageous to shut buildings down for long periods of time for major repairs, when it just needs to be simply refreshed because it's past its life cycle. So in there, it's like the satisfactory level of maintenance and just that sheer age of the facility. So there's so many things that are going into this as we look at where to build next, or where to refresh next, and then what to build. So that, that all of those criteria are going to come up. One of the things that I want to mention that I think is really important is what does the industry standards say we should be building? And we mentioned I want to say regional centers. They're multi-generational centers. So no longer is it, I want to say, a standard within the industry to build like a standalone senior center or a standalone youth center. I mean, we saw that in Gaithersburg. They built a youth center. It was great space. Then they turned around and realized it sits closed during the day. And then it's a senior center in the day and a youth center in the evening. So it's really important to ensure that these facilities are multi-generational, so that we can maximize the use out of them. The standard now is 1.5 square feet per population for indoor multi-use space, an additional 0.5 square foot for aquatic space. And that joined together to create what we would call this multi-generational regional center. The standard square footage probably being somewhere in the 60,000 to 80,000 square foot range. Basing that on, again, population density, some of it being on travel time standards, equity criteria, as I mentioned, some of that. And again, what is the recommended level of service or square foot per population? Now, sometimes we have these great ideals and financially they're just not doable. But then there's other feasibility issues, like, is there land available? That's just flat out becoming an issue in Montgomery County, where before space was readily available. So where can we build? And again, where can we build that it's close to public transit, easily accessible, and that can potentially serve multiple smaller communities in a jurisdiction? And so with all of that, we're taking all of this information in, but the community voice really, really matters in this piece. And so we want to build. It is our goal and our mission to give everybody the opportunity to meet the recreation needs. We know, and one other factor that I didn't mention that's really big too is looking at health disparities in a community to make sure we were blessed to be able to go what we call free in 23. So now our fitness rooms and facilities are accessible to everyone. So those who wanted a gym membership, maybe couldn't afford it, wasn't within their budget, can do that now. And so we want to be able to meet the needs of as many communities as possible, with understanding that we're behind in some places in the county, and we need to just continue to try to move forward and see what we can do to address it.
Thank you. Thank you. And the Free in 23 initiative is fantastic. I've heard much about it, read much about it, heard much about it, and know many people who are taking advantage of it in our community. So thank you.
You're welcome.
Well, the good news is it's going to continue in 24, so we're excited.
Wow. All the more in 24.
Yeah.
Very good. That one's free. You take that one free. Mm-hmm. Someone tell Elrich that. I gave him that free. Just kidding. Thank you very, very much. My primary responsibility is to facilitate our meeting. So I do have some questions, but I'm going to hold them until our attendees have an opportunity to ask some questions. So if you do have a question, just raise your hand and I'll call on you and we'll proceed in our usual orderly fashion. Andrew Einsman, I believe that's you. Hello, Andrew. Go right ahead.
Hello, Melanie, Adrian, thank you very much. I am a Free for 2023 recipient. I'm also the team rep of the Upper County Dolphins. So I got them going and I did all that. So one of the questions I have for you, I read the rec survey, and one of the top thing out of the 30 in this area was potential indoor swimming. Well, first of all, I love the Up County Regional Services Center. I wish it needs to be upgraded. It needs to be improved, but the facility there is still very nice. Senior citizens have a bunch of events there a lot of times, and I use their gym at least once a week, so that's great. But the question for you is, because my son does swim, and the interesting times that they have to do swim, and the fact that 150 kids tried out KSAC and only 20 made them. Is there any chances of having a swim center in this area, indoor swim aquatic center in this area of the county? Because I mean, it's not that bad, honestly, to go to only, but I know it was the top thing in your survey of 100 or 30 things you asked for this region.
So that would be our goal, is to get the larger regional rec center. And when it comes online, it would be rec center and aquatic center. And so that would be probably, I don't know if Clarksburg would come first, or if what I call, it's Shady Grove, but I call it like the mid-county type area. So it would encompass, it would be on this side of 270, whereas, Germantown's on the other side of 270, Alney's kind of on the other side of 200. So it would be right there in the center of the county, wherever we can find the space.
And really quickly, the other thing I would suggest if we could do is, it's called Up County Regional Center. It's no longer really Up County. So when people Google it and look at it, I did when I lived in Germantown, and when I lived in Germantown, I'm like, wait a minute, this is 25 minutes away. So I think that's one of the issues people have, and why people don't come to the pool, is because they look for Up County, and then they get this pool in Gaithersburg, and they're like, this isn't close to. So that's just another random recommendation, is we can change the name so people don't get this kind of brand confusion. I understand when it was built in 76, it was Up County, but a lot's changed in 50 years.
Indeed.
How do we change Upper County?
Well, I mean,
that'll be a hard one.
Call it whatever, the William Wim Center, or I mean, I've named it after someone from the Emery Grove area. Maybe the pastor of the church, whatever. It's just when you call Upper County, people are thinking Clarksburg, Damascus, Germantown, and it's not.
It's not. Yeah, it's not. Andrew, just as a sort of sidebar, there's a lot of discussion happening around the Upper County Community Center in that area in terms of a HOC project, a partnership project. Still way early, but there is discussion about doing something on that parcel to add.
Townhouses, we know.
Okay.
Townhouses the townhouses where all the parking is that no one ever uses.
Well, I don't know if it'd be townhouses. What I've heard is, apartments and condos, that type of thing, with a remodel of the rec center, which could mean a name change, is where I was headed. So
yeah.
Oh, good.
Yeah.
Thank you, Andrew. Good to hear your voice, Cecilia.
Also, Andrew, thank you for coaching.
Yeah.
I'm team rep. The coach is a different guy.
Advocating, yes. Thank you for organizing those parents. We greatly appreciate that. That takes a ton of work, and we understand that, and we could not do it without you.
Yeah. This year was a tough year too, trying to get 35 kids. It was challenging. So thank you for helping.
But the good news is everyone dipped their toe in this year. One kid, and a lot of them had multiple kids. So we have at least 15 or 20 kids that are coming in next year from those families who are just like, oh, we're signing up one kid, and they're like, oh, wow, this is really fun. And of course, since we closed July the 1st, it's a little earlier than a lot of our, for lack of better words, competitors in private programs. So the kids couldn't kind of get in. So, and the other thing that restricts us is not having a pre-team. So, anyone else we swim against that's a private pool has those pre-teams. So you have 4-year-olds running around the pool everywhere.
Thank you, Andrew. Other questions for our guests this evening? If you're not muted, would you be kind enough, just to avoid the extraneous noise? So if there are no questions, I'll ask one. So, thank you again, all three of you. And it's very helpful to hear kind of the complex parameters around the future. And noting that planning requires, as you say, the ingredients of advocacy, CIP, budgeting, all the things that you know far better than I do. I have two questions. First, how does your planning and process articulate with the work of Montgomery Planning and the work of Department of General Services under the county executive's office? Help me understand how those three county entities communicate and cooperate toward what is, I assume, methodical planning for the next several decades. I mean, I'm a novice. I've been around for 20 years, 17 years in the county, but help us understand how these entities coordinate and cooperate and communicate.
So I'm a novice too, in the
Okay.
big scheme of things when it comes right down to the whole CIP and coordinating and making it all happen. So right at this point in time, to get things moving, to get the advocacy going for a program, for a building, for a need that needs to be met, first thing you do is start talking to those council members and say, hey, what about us? We're looking at
Right.
this. We need this, because that's part of the bailiwick. We then need to, when we look, now that we're getting close to getting Silver Spring done in 25, we'll be looking to request, I guess is the best way. We put forward to DBDC, that would be Dice and Greg Assant and that group. We put forward, what our wants and desires are and our justifications and the needs and, our plans from that. We've developed over the years saying, this follows the plan that we wanted. This was approved by, the acceptance of the Vision 2030. And this is where we'd like to go next. Now that we've got Silver Spring done and we've got these refreshes going on, here's where we need to move. And, I'll be honest, Clarksburg's got a lot of rumbling going on up there. And if we'd like to see, personally, I'd like to get 2 done. That would be really nice. But it just takes some advocacy and some people, to show that this is a priority in the county.
Right.
Because when we start fighting for those, I don't want to say fighting, but there are limited funds and limited abilities and limited space. But the county council and the county exec needs to know what you want.
Right.
And Jeff, to help answer your question too, the way I would describe it from my perspective is you could consider the Maryland National Capital Park and Planning Commission, the planning, really the planners, not the, different from the Parks Department, the research arm of this piece. They're doing like with their Thrive plan. If you notice, they're looking at what's, they're the research arm of what's going on in the, the planning world and building community spaces. DGS, as Melanie mentioned, could be considered the design arm, and the department of recreation being the operation arm. So it's almost like a 3-legged stool, so to speak. And so we lean on the research done by the planning department to help tell us things like, what's trending in the industry, what's standard level of service, what should be communities looking at, what should we look at, and then we get together with Department of General Services. Either they're bringing in the architects, so we're refining the project a little bit more, and the recreation department is we're really this interesting bridge between just knowing what our services needs to look like and being there to meet the community need. So we're kind of out there saying, okay, we're doing it, and this is what the operation needs to be like. These are the amenities that the building needs to have. This is what the building needs to have in order to function well in its design, and we kind of go from there.
Right. Yeah. So this is helpful. Any other questions from people? Because I can follow on my question with my second one. Well, related one. What we'll do is we'll continue for another 15 minutes, and then we're going to shift to our second topic of this evening, where we welcome Aaron Kraut, who's Councilmember Lutke's chief of staff, who's with us. Thank you, Aaron, to talk about some recent incidents, very serious incidents in the West Side community. So we'll shift to that topic in just about 10 minutes. But again, thank you all very much. So my second question is somewhat of a rhetorical one, but just kind of share some thoughts. So given all the parameters that are required to proceed, it's hard for me to square many of those parameters with what is, and this may be unfair, but I'm going to say it, what is the obvious building boom going on in Bethesda and Chevy Chase in that region where land is even more at a premium than it is in mid-county. Let's be honest, okay? They're building on top of buildings down there. The density is what it is. So it's hard to square what you're sharing with, finding land. There's a lot more land up here than there is down there, but yet building booms there. So in the elephant in the room, and I hate to bring it up for those who are familiar, is the east side of Crabs Branch. We are strongly advocating for the relocation of the MCPS bus depot that should have been relocated years ago. And there is a community petition for that signed by over 803 people as of today. And our community has been very vocal about its needs and its expectations of our elected leaders to do their jobs and coordinate the relocation of that facility so that land can be made available for amenities, which it's supposed to be, including a field, potentially a school, a library, and potentially also additional housing. So respectfully, it's very hard to square what you're sharing with the reality that we see on the ground here when there is land available, perhaps not the east side just yet, and it won't be available, as we're being told, for probably another decade. But I can't square what you're saying with what our reality is here when land pretty much abounds in mid-county relative to other areas that are overbuilt, like Silver Spring, like Bethesda, and I might even say like Wheaton. So can you help me understand how can we advocate when logically it doesn't compute for me? I mean, what do we need to do to convince the powers that be that our community, where land is relatively more available, that it ought to, that resources and amenities that would make our community a better place to live ought to reside closer than 25 minutes away? Maybe I'm not being articulate enough, but I think you get my point.
I think it certainly makes sense. Really, I think if we knew the answer, man, I would probably, maybe just be somewhere else, just because it's such
Sure.
a complex, such a complex topic.
Right.
I think just being a community member my whole life in Montgomery County, I think one of the challenges that we're going to have is that when the relocation of that facility, when everybody says it's NIMBY, right? The acronym for not in my backyard.
Sure.
Where I think the argument is then where does it go? And
Right.
so I don't think there's a good answer here. And I do think that's an issue. It's a complex topic, and to
Sure.
stand here and think that we would have an answer for you, I don't think
No.
that we could do that. Yeah.
Right. And I'm just kind of asking. I don't
Yeah.
expect the answer. I
Right,
just
and-
wanted to surface
Yeah.
this. That's all.
And
Yeah.
I have to,
Thank you.
the land acquisition type thing, I know that, and while they may not say it real loud publicly, but I believe that, having my brief dealings with all the rental and the real estate people, they're always out there kind of searching in the background for
Right.
places and potential. And if they see something that is viable, I know that real estate team will try and do something to acquire that for us. I mean, I don't know that there's a lot of Montgomery County owned land up there right now. I know there's tracks.
Right.
How big is the depot? I'm like calculating how big's the depot?
Right.
Can
Yeah,
I put
so-
my center on the depot?
Right. So it is arguably misplaced for me to raise this. What one could argue, because
Right.
many people here have heard us talk ad nauseum about the bus depot, but the reality is that is something that we are facing as many people admittedly don't want it in their backyards, but we don't want it in ours either. And per the county's own plan, it's supposed to be relocated years ago. So I'm beating a dead horse here. But the point is that land, a quarter mile from Metro, adjacent to a flourishing community called West Side, adjacent to another community flourishing called Park Overlook and Mallard Cove. It's a logical place for such a wonderful amenity that you and your colleagues can spearhead with community advocacy. But I think, not to answer the question, but I think the answer is going back to what all three of you directly or indirectly stated, which is a community speaking up and making its voices heard and its expectations heard as loudly as other communities in the county, including, as you rightly said, Clarksburg, and folks there are doing a wonderful job advocating, for their community, and as they should, as every community should. So I think that's a big answer. I understand. But thank you for letting me surface that, and thank you to E. Beckman, who our guest, one of our participants, for your comment. Appreciate it. I'm going to stop talking. Any final questions for our guests this evening?
Can you hear me?
Yes,
Hello?
please go ahead.
Hey, it's Carol. I finally got in on the phone. I don't know what's going on with Teams.
Hi, Carol.
but
Go ahead.
Hi. No, you were asked how big the depot site is.
Mhm.
I think it's in the vicinity of 30 to 36 acres.
Wow, okay.
So it's quite a big site.
Noted. Thanks, Carol. Andrew, go ahead.
All right, it's just one more really quick question. When you're looking at recreational sites and recreational facilities, do you guys work? How does your relationship with the municipalities, Gaithersburg, Rockville, and Tacoma Park come into play? Because, yeah, I'll just let you go. Let you take it from there.
Thank you, Andrew.
We would reach out to our counterparts, and we don't want to, we try our best not to overlap services. We try to complement, we try to figure out, they offer X and what can we offer to enhance and improve and to make, the entire community and areas more well-rounded. And we have to remember is that, like the city of Rockville and the city of Gaithersburg, they serve the cities. And when we do something, we need to be able to serve everybody, whether they're a
Everybody.
city resident, a county resident, we want to serve all of them. So we do meet with them, we do talk with them, and
And
we
Jeff-
try and make it work out. Go ahead, Adrian.
Sorry, Andrew, I think it's interesting that you bring that up because one, we always try to give courtesy. They have wonderful recreation apartments in the city of Gaithersburg and the city of Rockville. And we do a lot of collaboration with them. We try to give them the first right of refusal, as Melanie mentioned. But that came up in the Lake Forest, the Montgomery Village community looking at the Lake Forest piece, because their concern was if the residents in need are just outside of the city limits, that the cost to participate is the non-resident cost to participate in the city of Gaithersburg.
Yep.
And so that was a concern that did come up. And also the city would have to come up with the money. And so sometimes the city, in this case, the mayor was leaning to the county and saying, oh, the city doesn't want to build anything, but the county should look at building something. If I understood those conversations correctly, and I see Robin nodding, so.
Yeah, the city of Gaithersburg has, at least my understanding is, they have a unique policy that they follow when they're building facilities. They do not float loans. They don't do bond money. They use cash money. And they just aren't in a position to, I think, financially add things at this time. So they are very much, interested in serving the community of city of Gaithersburg in that area, but just are not in a position financially to do it.
Thank you.
Mhm.
Andrew, did you have another question? Are you good?
Well, I mean, you can put my hand down, but that's an important issue about that Lake Forest, because the question is where to help Montgomery Village with their facilities. Because
Right.
since the YMCA has left, they don't really have a good indoor facility, whether it's that's, we'll say, public or quasi-public. It's all, privately owned gyms.
I could say the recreation department would love to be able to build something for city of Gaithersburg. They just, like Robin mentioned, I'd spoken with the director, and of course they would, just like all of us, to get a great new facility to be able to serve the community. I mean, that's right up all of our alleys. So.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you. Okay, well, all three of you, thank you very, very much for your time this evening. Very grateful, and especially to you, Director Riley, for taking time from your vacation, as I understand it. You're welcome to remain with us if you wish, or drop off, whatever you wish, and I will send you an email to thank you all very much and recognize you publicly, of course, in our email for our next meeting, which I usually do, thanking our guest speakers. So thank you very much. Appreciate what you do. Thank you for your service, as we say, to each other as civil servants on the Fed. So I say that to you, as does everyone in my community. So thank you very much for the work that you do, the expertise you bring to the table every day here in our county, and the wonderful resources you have in the facilities that you operate. So thank you very much. Have a good evening.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks for the
Really
opportunity.
appreciate it.
Thank you. Okay. We're going to continue right away. Now, this topic is not formally on our agenda, but it is one that I have been corresponding about with thanks to Shobhana Sharma, who's with us, a member of the Shady Grove Sector Implementation Plan Advisory Committee, flagging me on some very serious matters, incidents that have occurred in the West Side community. And I know, Shobhana, there's some your fellow neighbors who are here on the call, one of whom I spoke with just before the meeting. And in cooperation with you, I reached out to Aaron Kraut, who's with us. Aaron, hello, thank you, to talk with us about safety, security, how best our communities overall can cooperate with law enforcement, with his office, and in some cases, perhaps if they desire to build community watches in the community. But Shobhana, do you want to say a few words to kind of contextualize what I'm sharing here?
Sure. Thank you so much, Jeffrey. Good evening, everyone. As Jeff said, we've had some incidences predominantly, throughout my tenure here. I've lived here since 2018, but we've had a real uptick in the last couple of months, particularly in the last month, of some very serious issues where, a gun was pulled on somebody. Another lady was basically put down to the ground, and the person who put her down to the ground attempted to beat her with a rock. Cars are being broken into, cars are being stolen, packages are being stolen. It's just, people are breaking into cars in front of us here. So it's very grave. And, we put into place some things to help West Side, in terms of security. And we're looking at a neighborhood watch and trying to do a couple of other things as a community. But, we wanted to bring this to your attention because all of us in this area are at risk here. There was an attempted rape at the metro station. So it is serious. It is something we all need to look at, and we all need to band together maybe to, protect each other and help each other. So that's it. Thank you.
Have you contacted Councilman Katz?
No, we have not contacted Councilman Katz.
You need to go to the district police office and the councilman.
We've gone to the district police office. We have a liaison. Our managing agent, our HOA, they administer our HOA. They've been very helpful. Aaron Kraut and Council Member Lutke's office has been very helpful, but we have not gone to Mr. Katz. So we can definitely look out. Maybe Aaron can facilitate that. Hi, Aaron.
Hey.
Hi there.
Yeah. So, so I think specifically about the issues happening right now, I know we've been in contact with Commander Dillman, the 1st District, Shady Grove. This area is right inside the police 1st District, and don't think of the police districts as anything close to the council member districts or their state legislative districts. They're totally different, but there's a map online if you're ever interested. But anyway, so we want to get the community officer for 1D, as they call it, maybe some other officers who have been working on West Side issues to come meet with the community. That's number one. We have asked them to increase patrols. That was a request from the community we relayed, and Commander Dillman of 1D said, absolutely, we'll do that. That gets to a broader issue, which I'm happy to talk about, which is just the underlying shortage of officers in all districts across the county. But that's a broader thing we can talk about if you want. But in terms of immediate support, it's really about, we'll continue to push to make sure that meeting with West Side happens, we'll continue to ask about increased patrols to the extent they can be done. One other, maybe not short-term thing, but medium-term thing is the council on July 25th approved the final regulations for a program the county's starting where we will pay you back a rebate if you purchase a security camera for your home, your apartment, whether you own or rent, and that rebate would be good for up to $250. Of course, there's a limit to the amount of funding, so it's going to be a first come first serve sort of thing, but trust me, you are on the list of people we will be reaching out to individually. I may just email this whole group with when we know that's about to launch. Lieutenant Dan Helton, when he discussed it with the council last, said they're shooting to get that up and running this month. I think later this month, maybe early September. So we'll circle back with you about that. And that's just a way potentially to help. And if you participate in the rebate program, you're under no requirement to hand over footage to the police. But if you want to, especially for property crimes, thefts from autos, people who, try doors, unlock and find unlocked doors, and that could be helpful. Camera looking out onto the street. Yeah. So that's more of a medium term thing that's coming. And then, I'm happy to talk about some of the broader underlying issues with the shortage of officers we have, but it's been well covered and well documented. So let me know how much you want to discuss that, and if you have any other questions.
I do. May I ask a quick question?
Yeah.
So we had a community town hall last night, and I may or may not have mentioned that we've hired a private security guard who roams our neighborhood from 11 p.m. to 6 a.m. In a car with strobe lights and everything. And it's actually, we've caught a couple of few things. It's only a test program for 1 week period. It's quite expensive, as you can imagine. But we felt it worth it for the community and the well-being. And, we've got people that don't want to come outside, they don't want to leave their house. So a couple of questions. So, and you may or may not know, Aaron, what was the previous patrol schedule? And second to that, what does increased patrol actually mean? Is that defined in any way? I mean, is there a schedule? Are they coming around once a night at, midnight? Because quite frankly, I haven't really seen, I think I saw a police car here maybe once or twice, which is probably better than before. But do you have any data or information on that?
Not yet. We're waiting to hear from Commander Dillman on that.
Okay.
And I think that is something we'll try to get to you as soon as possible. It could also be something that they have prepared for when they're ready to set up time to come to the community for that meeting.
Okay. Would that be a virtual meeting or in person?
I think it would be up to you. I mean, I don't know. I'm pretty certain they can do it either way. It's sort of your preference, but.
Okay. Yeah. I mean, are any other neighborhoods like in Durwood, like Jeff, where you live, have you faced any of this? Or, I mean, we know we're in the metro, near the metro, and a lot of this is happening, because people know they can make a quick getaway to that metro access road in the back there. So one other important thing that community members mentioned was speed bumps back there, so that somebody can't go 60, 70 miles an hour to get away because they have these speed bumps. So, I know that has to go through the county. So, some kind of help like that would be very instrumental, at least in certain areas on that metro access road throughout our community.
Speed bumps on the metro access road?
Yes. Because the poor gentleman, my neighbor, who was, he said last night the 9mm handgun was 10 feet from his face. And, he's apparently trained, he's military, whatever, but, so he did his best to just kind of allay and get those guys out of his face. He basically said, no problem, go on your way. as he's crouching down. But so if somebody like that, you know, has this issue, imagine somebody like me, what I would do, you know. So he was very adamant and about having speed calming or, you know, speed bumps back in that area.
Okay.
I know we have others planned in the neighborhood. The builder told us that we had some previously. They're going to be coming back. So
Yeah, I can look into it. First figure out who owns that Metro Access Road and see
It's
what
the
kind
state.
yeah,
That's the state highway.
Mhm.
Whenever, so I can, so whenever there's a request for lighting along the Metro Access Road or maintenance, potholes or the cleanup of the weeds that are growing there, it's always the state highway authority. Yeah.
I can check in with them on that.
Yeah.
One
Shona,
other thing I wanted to mention just quickly, sorry,
Yeah,
at the
go ahead.
Metro itself, you know, we can hear in our community, I'm far away from the Metro, but I can hear people racing in that Metro parking garage, you know, with revving their engines and you know, it's quite destructive. So people, a lot of things are going on in that Metro parking lot and that Metro, which I think Metro police, they need to beef up whatever
Yeah.
they do. So, you know, talking to them or getting them involved, you know, would be critical, I think, because
Yeah.
it seems as good as being by the Metro is, that is causing huge problems because people coming in here into a nice area can get away very quickly.
No, I'm glad you brought that up. That's a really good point. And maybe they can support things at least in their perimeter, so to speak. But I know it sort of bleeds into West Side anyway, so maybe they could be a help. So yeah, we'll reach out to our intergovernmental contact at WMATA and you just see what they're thinking. And if they haven't been aware of this or thinking of it, then we'll make them aware of it and see what they can do.
And then one last thing, does the county or can the county offer us any cameras in our community? You know, because
Yeah, I know what you mean. So
like put them on a post where the light post is, where stop sign is, you know, to read license plates and, you know, track who's coming in and out from Crabs Branch. You know, we're a small community. These things are huge cost items for us. We're willing to spend the money. We don't have the money, you know, but the thing is we have to do something. That it's not acceptable that, you know, we're living in fear. We can't be living in fear here.
Agreed. And I apologize because you did ask about this in one of your emails. We'll check with police.
Okay.
The county, just for everyone's context, the county does have, I may get the number wrong, but I want to say 5 or 6 what we call mobile cameras.
Mhm.
And you may have seen smaller versions that privately owned in like parking lots of Home Depot on Shady Grove Road, for instance. These are much taller. I would say more substantive, but we can ask about getting one stationed there at least, and especially at this moment. And they can be helpful with reading license plates of vehicles with drivers who might have been involved with crime. So,
Cool. Thank you, Aaron.
yeah.
Regarding license plates, there is a question from one of our participants. Does the county police have license plate readers in areas that possibly could be an option to track things? So that answers the question, I guess, right?
I think so. I mean, I don't know if we have other technology like that.
No.
I know these because we've worked with police to get this implemented in at least one other community. The high above mobile camera pole,
right.
and that what they've communicated to us is the license plate reading is a key function of what they do. So I think that's the answer to that question. It's a matter of if one's available and can we get it down the West Side.
So we did have those some time ago back on the Metro Access Road as the homes were being built. So I think they were here for some time. So that would definitely be helpful back there along with the speed bumps. But in a more general sense, you know how like you watch a TV show and you're in New York City and there's cameras and the cameras pick up this and that. I was thinking more globally like that. Is there anything that the county offers that we could strategically place on light poles at the west side? You know, like 3 or 4 of those subsidized by the county to add to the capability to view what's happening. You know,
I don't
I know
know.
I'm asking a lot.
No, that's good. I don't know the answer. Let me research and find out. I think
Thank
I know
you.
what you're talking about.
Yeah. Now, the other good thing is a lot of us have various doorbell cameras, ring cameras, cameras above our homes. So we captured the car that was going 70
Mhm.
miles an hour and attempted to, you know, well, this incident I talked to you about, we've captured the people coming in and out wearing hoodies and carrying hammers to bash the car door windows. So, you know, we have a lot on our own also.
Yeah, and that's why I think it's important that we get this meeting set up with the first
Yeah.
district folks, because then you can have a face-to-face, a contact and someone you're comfortable with getting that stuff too. If that person's comfortable sharing that, you know, that's, I think, in a lot of these types of situations I've been involved with before, that sharing with police is key and a big thing that happens at these meetings. So,
Excellent. Thank you very much.
yeah.
Shobhan, I'll respond. Thank you, Aaron. I'll respond to your question, whether, you know, Park Overlook is experiencing this. And I can't speak on behalf of the community, but I can speak as a member of the community. To my knowledge, we have not. We have experienced incidents of vandalism in the past. We definitely experience occasional speeding along the loop, Needwood Road that winds through. We've had some vandalism in recent years, although not during COVID, in Blueberry Hill Park, which has been handled quite well by the park police. And periodically, our HOA sends out an email that says, look, if you see something, say something, and keep in mind a reminder that, and this is really important, that if there's an incident in the park, which is adjacent to us, that's the park police. Not that you can't call the regular police, but it's the park police who is your, you know, a primary point of contact. So we always try to explain that to the community. So just to answer you, I mean, there may be incidents that I'm not aware of. There was a massive car wreck late last year. There was a car. It was a drunk driver that was careening down the road. I heard it, and then I heard it crash, and it crashed right in front of Delegate Von Stewart's house. It took out both mailboxes, I think a tree, and took out 2 cars. And that was horrifying to hear, because we knew something happened. But that was terrible. It was around the holidays. I myself had a question for Aaron, and it's something I've never thought about. So it's not true. I thought about it a long time ago when Park Overlook discussed very generally the idea of a neighborhood watch. One of the arguments against a neighborhood watch is, well, if you put up neighborhood watch signs, that implies the neighborhood has crime. Now, I didn't agree with that. I thought, well, you put up neighborhood watch signs, it means you've got a vigilant neighborhood. So I'm just curious, Aaron, in your experience, have you ever been in conversations about neighborhood watches and the pros and the cons, and I know what it takes to establish them, you know, cooperation with authorities, but have you ever heard these pros and cons? Have you heard other people debate this, or on balance, would you say neighborhood watches are good things? That's what I would say. I'm just curious.
Yeah. So to be honest, I haven't been involved in many of those discussions. The concern that you raised as being raised is definitely one I've heard. So this is just my personal opinion now.
Yeah.
I think it's one of those things that can't hurt, especially. I mean, there's some benefits of it. For one thing, it means hopefully, at least at the onset, you have an active, engaged community, and that can lead to progress on other fronts other than just crime. But in terms of crime, my personal opinion is there are probably more effective concrete things that we can be doing. So that's just my personal take. But I don't let that discourage you from forming one if that's the interest.
Sure. No, totally respect it. Just wanted to raise it as a question. Other questions for Aaron? Shobhan, I saw Andrew's hand, and then we'll go to you. If I may.
Thank you.
Andrew, please go ahead.
Yeah, real quick, I just want to chime in on this one. My old community in Germantown, we had a sign that said community watch. We didn't really have a community watch, but we felt similar to like the signs on people's front doors that say, alarm system here. It's more of a deterrent. It just makes people think twice on whether or not to even go in there. Now, did our community actually do the community watch? It lasted for about 3 months, but the sign stayed up, and we never really had crime before that, but people just thought it was a good idea to just make people think twice going into this community that's a cul-de-sac, that type of thing.
Right. Thank you. That's really helpful. Shobana, please go ahead.
Yeah, I just wanted to make everyone aware. I think recently, within the last year, the beer and wine place was actually robbed. Pearl Vision something happened at Pearl Vision. So there are things happening with the retail businesses, and I think it's in our best interest to definitely look out for, not only West Side, but all the retail that's going in there. CVS is coming,
Right.
So we want to make sure that those people are protected so that can thrive and help the community. And then secondly, I wanted to mention the dense woody area over here on Shady Grove Road and like Front Loop, right where our community is, Nicosia, where the patch of where our dog park is and where the area, hopefully where there's retail. Those woods are dense. And somebody mentioned last night, now I haven't seen it myself, that there's people living in there or maybe sleeping in there. So, I don't know who maintains that landscaping or, those trees, those bushes, but whoever it is needs to thin it out or, make it less appealing for somebody to hide in there, sleep in there, live in there. So that's all I wanted to bring up and see what could be done about that.
Shobana, I live on Front Street near that area. I've heard this rumor going around the neighborhood that there's people living in the woods there. I don't really quite understand that. That is an extreme slope from the dog park up to Shady Grove Road. I mean, there's 4-story townhouses and the 4th floor of those is level with the road up above. So this concept that there's, boogeymen living in the woods might be a bit exaggerated given folks's fear with the current uptick in things, but we might want to just investigate that a little bit further because living in that area, I'm not sure if that's really necessarily true.
I'm talking about the wooded area behind the dog park. And like I said, I have not witnessed it, but this person said that she has actually seen it. So I definitely hear what you're saying. But I also heard what she said. So it's somebody, I think we should just look at that area to, clean it out, make sure, it's clean, it's groomed, you can see through it. You know what area I'm talking about, right? The woody area behind the dog park.
Oh, I'm very familiar with that area. So
Okay.
if you thin out those trees, the next complaint is going to be that, the folks on that row have, cars in front of their window.
Yeah.
Should maybe someone walk through in depth, but there's not a lot of room back there. Should someone walk through potentially, but thinning out the trees, that's unfortunately, we take 1 step forward and 2 steps back.
Yeah, you're right about that. It's a difficult.
Can someone walk through and look and confirm? Maybe that's the stage where we're at. We need someone to kind of maybe inspect and confirm.
So whose jurisdiction is that maintenance of that area?
We can figure that out.
Okay.
So on
The
a
land
let's,
is owned by DGS.
Okay,
Could follow up with Mr. Sant or someone else at DGS.
all right,
thank,
that
that'd be
makes it
great.
easier, actually. Thanks, Nikosi.
Good. Thank you
So-
so much, everyone.
Thank you.
I do need to understand where it is, but Shavana, I'll follow up with you tomorrow.
Thanks.
Thank you. Thank you, Aaron. Any other questions for Aaron regarding the incidents or security generally? I'll just say, Aaron, I was not aware of the rebate program that you've described, and that sounds wonderful. And thank you for keeping the community as a whole in mind, and certainly, without question, the West Side community, given what our neighbors are facing there. And Shobana, we're all in this together, and we support you. And if I personally can be a resource for you, happy to do so. And I appreciate our correspondence and welcoming Aaron to our meeting. And Aaron, you normally come to our meetings, but particularly for this one, thank you very much.
Yeah, I just want to mention David Lorenzo Botello from Council President Glass's office is here too.
Ah, David, hello. Nice to see you.
And he's been more active than us, even on, especially traffic safety issues, Shady Grove and Crabs Branch. So
very good. Thank you, David. Forgive me, I did not see you. Good to see you. I know we've corresponded quite a bit.
Yes.
Do you have anything you want to add to the conversation? Forgive me.
Well, I mean, just on the public safety piece, well, I mean, the one thing that I could add is just speaking to the broader issue that we really are having with under policing in the county. As council president, Evan went to like the latest graduating class of the newest recruits. And that by far was one of the largest classes we've had in the last several years. The $20,000 signing bonus that we have to attract new police officers in Montgomery County is working. And then, we also have other programs that have been strengthened, like the cadet program. And that allows young people like me who grew up in this community to also sign up to protect and serve the community too. So that's all in the works, but yes, they're, happy to speak to any other kind of like pedestrian safety, Shady Grove Road, associated streets, any of those topics.
I actually do have something on that. Sorry, I'm not trying to hijack this meeting, but I, along with another neighbor here, we were trying to move the school bus stop, the elementary school bus stop, to within our community. So that didn't work. Aaron was very helpful. And I just want to say a word about Aaron Kraut. This man, you need anything, you contact him and he makes magic. He finds the right person. He's always helpful. And I just want to say thank you, Aaron, for everything. You are truly a resource and truly somebody that cares about the community. So
he's always in the council building.
Good. No wonder. But anyway, we weren't able to move the school bus stop. They said, the buses or community roads were too small. But they did say that Montgomery County Public Schools thought that this Crabs Branch Road needed to have some kind of speed, what they say?
Mitigation?
Yes, speed
Calming?
mitigation. Thank you. Some traffic calming or, maybe some cameras. So we are working also to try to get this road redesignated as a residential road. It is critical because, cars come speeding down this road. They run into homes, they run into Starbucks, they run into each other. It's very dangerous. So, any help you could provide on that would be critical to rezone or change the zoning of this road or at a minimum, get some speed cameras.
Right.
We need some speed cameras. Big trucks come up and down this road. Not only are they going fast, but they make so much noise. So because they're going so fast.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And I understand. So, and I read the thread and so right now, I mean, Crabs Branch Ray, it's a beat on the master plan of highways and transitways. It's designated, and I have the note here. It's the Town Center Boulevard, or like a business district street. And it says that the target speed is 25. Is that the actual target speed for the road as it is right now?
That's what it's supposed to be, I believe. Yeah.
Yeah, you know, because I was talking to, so basically, you know, if we wanted to change the classification of that roadway, I think we would need, and Aaron, please correct me if I'm wrong, or if there's planning staff on this call, correct me if I'm wrong. You know, but to amend any master plan or, you know, functional or not, like even the rustic roads master plan, it would require amendments to come to the council from the planning board. And all of that can happen because I think maybe each year the council approves a work plan for the planning board and its department. And, you know, they set out things that they want to, changes that they want to make in individual master plans. And just recently, we updated that highway, the master plan of highways and transitways, through, I think, Bill 24-22 or 20. Yeah, I think that was the bill, the Streets and Roads Act. And so I think it would need to be through that vehicle, an amendment to the master plan of highways and transitways, that would reclassify the road. But then, you know, it begs the question, just how, you know, how do we set up the planning board to take up that work? And that I'm a bit unclear on. I mean, I don't want to be long-winded. We just approved updates to the rustic roads master plan. Again, no zoning, just changing, again, road classifications. And I know that the work started with planning, it came to council, but I guess what's unclear to me is kind of like the inception. So
I wonder if Nkosi has any information on that. He's with Park and Planning.
Nkosi, right? I mean, because I think that's true, right? That
Yeah,
you know,
I
you
am,
can.
I am with the planning department. So you have a couple of things. Currently, there's no update on the work program regarding Shady Grove. We did a plan 2 years ago, so there are other plans that are way ahead. So the highways and transitways, that's an opportunity to revisit the roadway. You do have the based on the new Complete Streets Guide, the MCDOT, Montgomery County Department of Transportation, they need to update and create executive regulations in terms of guidance regarding all the roadways that are within the Complete Streets Guide. That has not yet been done. That's probably the more efficient path. It's a lengthy path, but it's probably more efficient path regarding the implementing agency, which is MCDOT in this case, to have regulations that pertain to any roadway modifications regarding Crafts Branch, rather than having any other planning initiative, which is a much longer process and it's not really going to get you home, right? So it's really this issue is really an MCDOT issue.
Well, excuse me for a moment, okay? Respectfully, I've had correspondence recently with Mr. Bossy at MCDOT, and he pointed me right back to his engineers, which took us right back to the original approach, which was back in September, following a community walkthrough of Crabs Branch Way. And I don't mean to be blunt, but I'm going to be. That email was wholly unhelpful. We're back to square one. So yes, DOT, but here is respectfully Mr. Bossy saying, well, our engineers will handle it. And he put me back in touch with Mr. Wynn, who will probably write me, sorry, with the same stock reply, telling me they'll deploy a smart trailer whenever they get around to it, depending on resources. And here we are. So I'm sorry, but meanwhile, back on Crabs Branch Way, we have all the incidents happening that Shobana described. So how can we all work together to mitigate the speed there? It's 25 miles an hour. People don't go 25 miles an hour. Let's work together before someone gets killed. I'm sorry to say that, but that's how I feel. So where do we go?
Aaron, you want to chime in first? I have a thought or an idea, but go ahead.
Yeah. So again, all right. I'm only speaking from. I'm not a traffic engineer. I'm not a planner. I'm only speaking from my experience
Sure.
handling traffic calming constituent requests
Yeah,
with
same.
County DOT State Highway. Looking at Crabs Branch between Shady Grove and Redland, business road, like David said, 25-mile-per-hour target speed. I think the posted speed limit's actually 35.
Didn't know that.
So,
Oh.
just I am not sure that fighting this fight to get the road classified down, one, is gonna work. David's
Mhm.
right. We have to wait until the next update to the countywide master plan of highways and transitways, because you're not having an area master plan anytime soon, because you just had an update in 2021. So, but it's 2 lanes in each direction, divided by a median. You do have curbside parking and some what could be called bump outs in front and behind that parking, which should help with some traffic calming. I understand there's still plenty of speeding problems there. So I just don't know what more we would be able to get by trying to classify the road down, and classifying the road down is going to be a really long process. So one thought would be to approach police automated traffic with a request for a speed camera. And this is something I know the community knows well. Try to get one deployed in that stretch as quickly as you can. Those work. They work, pure and simple. That would be number one. That doesn't, if it's already approved as a speed camera area, which it might be, it doesn't require a study or any of that. I'd be happy to work with Council President Glass's office and the community to go to DOT and make a general request for traffic calming along that stretch of Crabs Branch. I just don't know. I don't know what we're gonna get. Maybe a traffic circle would be, but
No, Aaron, that's a capital budget item.
traffic circles are controversial and costly ways. So, but I don't want to close the door on anything, but I just think the best way to attack this is to ask for specific things, whether of police or the DOT engineers, rather than going through the classification struggle, which would be a struggle.
One thing that so again, because I like Aaron, I also do, we get pedestrian traffic safety concerns that come into our office from all corners of the county. A couple months ago, I was working with the community in Silver Spring, Inwood Avenue, between Dennis Avenue and University Boulevard. So several things there. One, we engaged the District 4 police, and they they stepped up patrols, having physical presence of police officers. But then each police district has what's called a TCO, a traffic complaint officer. Bethesda surprisingly has two. Every other police district has one. But I'm wondering if we can work with the commander that oversees Shady Grove and flag some of these issues for the TCO, the traffic complaint officer, so they can deploy in addition to like a automated speed camera. It's called it's like a speed monitoring sign that will, if you're traveling faster than the supposed speed limit, you'll get a bright light, and that usually sends a signal to motorists to slow down. So I'm wondering if that could be like a treatment option. I'm not sure if you've seen that kind of infrastructure deployed throughout the county or in Shady Grove, specifically, or even Crabs Branch. Maybe not Crabs Branch, obviously, because that's the need. That's where the need is. But that could also be a strategy.
Well,
and then I want to address so super quickly. So, because again, I asked Huang. I was literally on the phone with him 2 days ago, and I was like, he made it clear. Yeah, he made it seem that residents need to request a speed study for MCDOT to consider dropping the speed limit of any road. And Jeff, like you said, I'm sure this is a request that has been clearly made in the past. So I'm not sure why he's feeding me that information.
it's documented, you know.
Yeah, no,
And
absolutely.
I look, several people here have spoken from their own personal point of view.
Sure.
I'll speak from mine.
Yeah.
I'm getting real tired
Yeah.
of emailing and being bounced back and forth
Yep.
between multiple county units. And Aaron knows how I feel about this.
Yeah.
Let me count them. You got planning, you got parks, you got DGS, you got, okay, I mean, I can go on and on and on.
Yep.
And let me tell you, as a 17-year resident of this county, sorry to rant, it's not Montgomery County, it's Montgomery Clown Car. Okay. That's how very, very seriously I feel about this. And I know this meeting is being recorded for the public record. Let it be.
Yeah.
Let it be so, because it is unacceptable to have this disconnect, persistent disconnect, and the burden placed on taxpayers and voters to have to be bounced back and forth. And my response to Mr. Bossy is a case in point of being bounced around.
Yeah.
And most people would just have given up 6 months ago or a year ago. I'm gonna give up because it's obviously a waste of time. And so why do I care? Because I don't want anybody getting killed on Crabs Branch Way or Shady Grove Road. But here we are. So I'm sorry to lay down the gauntlet respectfully and kindly, but I'm speaking the truth here.
Absolutely.
Right? And others, I'm sorry to upturn the meeting, but I appreciate what you're both bringing to the table. I really do. And Aaron and I have spoken, privately about his public service. But come on. I mean, really, this is ridiculous. And it is also, extremely annoying, to say the least, when we see deployment of traffic calming in other parts of the county because they speak louder. And there's money. And there's influence. Should I keep going? Because I can. I got all night. I could do this all night.
Yeah.
Okay, so I've said my piece.
Yeah.
And let's try to get to do something for the benefit of the immediate benefit of our West Side neighbors.
Absolutely.
Okay, let alone the Shady Grove sector. And I respect the fact that we can't go back and study the road, but that's a red herring. That's a lame excuse for not mitigating the speed on a road where someone is going to die. Okay. And if someone does, and we have to say, oh, we couldn't study the road, that's on the county. That's on the county. So there we are. So what can we do? I'll leave it to Shobana respectfully because she's immediately adjacent to the road, but I don't know what more I can do. And Mr. Hong, who you spoke with, I don't know what to do with that, because we've rewritten to him. They did a study. How many more people need to speak up to request the speed mitigation? Okay. And I know there are policies and procedures and everything is complex. I understand that. I don't want a silver bullet, but how many more people need to speak up on this? And what do we need to do to get him to understand, as a capable traffic engineer, that we have a problem? I don't want another form email reply. And I don't think any of my neighbors do either. And frankly, when they've gotten it, they're like, I'm out, I'm done.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah,
thanks for letting me share.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And, and rightly so. I mean, Jeff, that you were totally on the money. This is a massive, massive, massive problem. This year, we've had 9 people die on the roads throughout Montgomery County.
Yeah.
And over 300 more pedestrians and bicyclists have been hit by cars. The car-on-car numbers are always worse. And so, again, immediately, I mean, this is something that I want to, talk to Aaron about. We can connect tomorrow. But again, I want to try and just re-engage. We can have MCDOT do the treatments, but if the drivers keep ignoring those treatments, we need enforcement. And I want to try and engage the TCO.
Yeah.
So
to E. Beckman, who just wrote, and forgive me, I don't know your first name, Beckman writes, we have school bus stops all along the Crabs Branch Way, that was not known to me. So I don't live in the community. MCPS says we cannot move the bus stop, so our children stand along the road to wait for the buses. Okay. All right. Thank you. Thanks to you. So here we are. Here's another case in point, and I'm very sorry to say this. Okay. This is yet the fundamental reason why we need to do something on Crabs Branch Way. All right. And now I understand the egress, the issues of a bus turning into a local street, that can be horrendous for a large bus. I understand that. That then that's an urban planning issue that respectfully EYA should never have built the units as close as they can, that would as close as they are, preventing large fire engines and school buses from entering into those residential areas. That's on them, frankly. That's on whatever the regulations are, way above my pay grade, whatever the regulations are for building in this county. If you don't have the proper public safety access, you got a whole other level of problem. But this now is on MCPS because their own kids are getting on buses, and if they get hit by a car, where are we now? All right. I'm sorry. I'm really sorry. I'm being so candid, and God forbid that should happen.
Jeffrey,
God forbid that should happen. Sorry, go ahead.
It's E. Beckman. I'm Evelyn, by the way. Hello.
Evelyn,
Thank you.
hello.
Off the top of my head, so along Crabs Branch Way, I know of, there's a school bus stop that's at Flatbush and Crabs Branch Way. There's another stop that's at Tribeca and Crabs Branch Way. And then, you know, you just said that the Starbucks got ran into a few years ago because of speeding at Gramercy Boulevard and Crabs Branch Way. There is a stop right there and picks up the children from the apartments that are there along that curve. So yeah, it's especially when there's limited park space, you know, at West Side, we cross Crabs Branch Way all the time to walk along Crabs Branch Way to try to get to any park space. So I appreciate everybody's attention to this issue, and thank you, Jeffrey and Shobana, for your leadership.
So I think
thank you, Evelyn.
We'll reach out to police about the speed camera tomorrow. In terms of DOT and a traffic calming evaluation, happy to do it. I want to bring in the piece Shobana mentioned about when we asked MCPS Transportation, they said they think the street's dangerous too. And of course, they're headquartered right across the street still, unfortunately. But so they know the road. So I want to bring that piece to DOT too, and maybe that's a way to approach it. But just know we cannot make guarantees about what a DOT traffic evaluation is going to end up with, because they have very set standards that are passed down to us from the Federal Highway Administration even. That doesn't mean they don't have discretion, and we can work within those lines of discretion. So David and I will work together to try to craft that quest and work with you as well. I think we should circle back with the group before we send it, David, but to try to make that the most effective it can be.
Thank you. Thank you. And thanks to Shobana and Evelyn, and thank you to all of you for listening to me share my thoughts on this. I'm very passionate about it because I care. So, all right, so we are at 9:02. All of us have busy lives, and all of you who kindly participate in our meeting. David, thank you very much. Aaron, thank you very much for your time this evening. Nkosi, thank you as always for your support of the committee. And we will conclude, but I'll just mention that our next meetings are going to be on Wednesday, October 4th, and Wednesday, December 6th. For October 4th, we have invited David Dice back to talk about the MCPS bus depot and efforts of his great team at DGS in relocation. So we hope David will join, and I understand Seth Adams will be participating in that meeting as well. And if anyone has just a general call, if anyone has topics they wish this group to take up, feel free to email me. I'll put my email in the chat, and happy to consider that in cooperation with the group, and genuinely appreciate everybody's participation and time. Thank you again, Aaron and David, and to our colleagues and friends over at Recreation for their presentation at the outset of our meeting. So thank you. Everybody have a very safe rest of the summer and a wonderful fall. See you in October.
Thank you all.